Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump has outdone himself yet again. As if we didn't think that, calling Mexicans rapists and murderers, or calling for the deportation of 11 million undocumented immigrants with no plan to actually pay for it, no specifics, no nothing. You didn't think that that was crazy enough. Well, now we have him calling for something even more insane and unconstitutional. Watch.
Shall I read you the statement? Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on. We have no choice. We have no choice. Mr. Trump stated, without looking at the various polling data, it's obvious to anybody the hatred is beyond comprehension of such a big portion. Where the hatred comes from and why we will have to determine. We're going to have to figure it out. We have to figure it out. We can't live like this. It's going to get worse and worse. You're going to have more World Trade Centers. It's going to get worse and worse, folks. We can be politically correct and we can be stupid, but it's going to get worse and worse. Folks, those days are over. Those days are over. We have to be tough. We have to be smart. We have to be vigilant. Yes, we have to look at mosques and we have to respect mosques. But yes, we have to look at mosques. We have no choice. We have to see what's happening. Because something is happening in there. Man, there's anger. There's anger. And we have to know about it.
Something is happening in the mosques, and we have to know about it. Most likely you're going to find prayers. There haven't been any attacks. And remember, we spied on mosques in New York City. They didn't find anything. All they found was people praying. Because a mosque is nothing more than a church. Just a different religion. That's all it is. That's the only difference. You're not finding terrorists in the mosque. You know why? Because most Muslims hate terrorists. It's true. It's true. But anyway, to Trump's plan, his plan is to ban all Muslims. So let's get this straight. This even applies to American citizens who are Muslim. If you're a citizen that's traveling abroad, you would not be allowed to come back in. Well, what if you went to Syria? Because, you probably got in with ISIS, then you come back to do an attack. That's probably what happened. That's the assumption. While that did happen in the case of California, those are very, very rare cases. Are we going to shut down all of it because of one case? This is like taking your toys and going home when somebody does one thing wrong. It's like when one person ruins it for everyone else. Well, that's not how we run the country. That's not how we're supposed to run things here. All right? I thought we operated on due process, on a case-by-case basis. That's obviously not the case, right? We're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. But it seems like Trump, in calling for this, even as a temporary basis, has said, no, you're all guilty. You're all terrorists or potential terrorists. I'm not going to take that chance. We're not going to take that chance. Oh, geez. We got to keep him out. We don't have a choice. We don't have a choice. He keeps saying that. We don't have a choice. We got to keep him out until we understand and figure out the problem. Oh, really? Well, I think we kind of do understand the problem. At least I understand the problem. What is the problem? Well, it's fundamentalists. There are fundamentalists out there, Muslims, that are dangerous. I get that. I understand that. And I'm fine with security measures, with checking people, vetting people. And we do a really good job at vetting people. It's not going to be 100%, Because nothing is. Nothing is a guarantee in life. Rational people understand that. But Trump seems anything but rational. And speaking of irrational, I go to the fundamentalists. The fundamentalist Muslims, the fundamentalist Christians. This is why I'm against all fundamentalism. Because when you start actually taking your book as literal, right, the seven-headed dragons and all, or the winged horse or whatever that Muhammad was supposedly, riding on, or whatever, when you start taking that shit literally, you're not a rational person anymore. And if you can convince somebody about a flying horse or a seven-headed dragon, that's real, you can get them to believe anything. And more importantly, you can get them to do anything. So fundamentalism is the problem here. Fundamentalism of all stripes. Now, some of these attackers, especially the ones in San Bernardino, these were Muslim fundamentalists. They got radicalized. But there are other Christian fundamentalists that also get quote-unquote radicalized, even though we don't use that term. They go radical and they shoot up a Planned Parenthood. It's the same thing. It's still terrorism. And it's still based on religion. And it's all dangerous. And we need to take a look at this fundamentalism. It is an enemy of civilization, of modern civilization, is fundamentalism of all stripes. Now, as I said, you can't really say that Trump is a rational person because he doesn't see that. So when it comes to the hatred, right? When it comes to the hatred, well, we do know where some of that comes from as well. Now, a lot of that comes from our consistent interventions in the Middle East. And let's be fair about that. We go into the Middle East for their resources, or to make alliances for political stability, to get political friends. We've done that. We do that. We overthrew governments. Okay, the Shah of Iran, for example. We've done that. We armed terrorists, like the Mujahideen, to fight the Soviets back in the 1980s. And we all know what happened there. We armed Osama bin Laden. And he turned around and 9/11. That was our fault. We built that. And we have to acknowledge that that's what we've done. We had a hand in that. We've had a hand in creating these terrorist groups. Or at least making them more and more prominent. We also decided to become buddy-buddy with Saudi Arabia, which is the biggest promoter of Wahhabism, which is a fundamentalist strain of Islam. We've helped them spread Wahhabism in return for cheap oil, in return for a political ally in the region. So that's part of what we've done. And something about Wahhabism, right? Wahhabism is, as I said, it's a very, very fundamentalist strain of Islam. It's also a lot close. It's very much like what ISIS believes. Very strict, very fundamentalist. Women get they can't drive. People get beheaded. Women get stoned for being adulterers. All the worst things about Islam. And yet we're friends with a country that spreads that. But we don't talk about that, do we? Our politicians don't talk about Saudi Arabia. That's what I'm saying. So, look, the whole point is that there's no doubt that some Western intervention has led to places where extremism can thrive. Now, extremism has always existed, but we've allowed them to have places to thrive. We destabilized Iraq, and that led to the creation of ISIS. We do understand where this comes from. We do understand why this is happening. And we are trying to do something about it. But see, what Donald Trump wants to do is not at all what we should be doing. Remember, ISIS wants it to be a war of Islam versus the rest of the world. Muslims make up 1.6 billion, there are 1.6 billion Muslims in this world. That's a lot of Muslims. If we were at war with Islam, which is what ISIS wants, we'd be at war with a lot of countries. Some of the countries that have nuclear arsenals, like Pakistan. That would not be a good thing. That would be a terrible thing. Now, luckily, most Muslims hate ISIS. They detest them, as they should. And you see them out there openly denouncing the Islamic State. They don't agree with it. But see, when we call to ban all Muslims from America, we send the signal to people that, hey, we are actually at war with you. We don't want you near us. But see, you're making enemies of the people whose enemies are also ISIS. We have the same enemies. Fundamentalism. It makes no sense to me. This is their recruiting pitch. The West is at war with Islam. Join with us so you can defend Islam. Wouldn't it make sense to deny them those recruits? Wouldn't it make sense to deny them that message? I mean, it's not an easy situation. But you got to do what's right at the end of the day. And what's right is not doing their work for them. Now, I know some people will say, well, wait a minute. People aren't going to radicalize that easy, right? Well, I'm not saying that it's easy to radicalize people. I'm just saying that it is a little bit more likely that you're going to radicalize people, especially if you start treating them as if they already are the terrorists. That's all I'm saying. And that's another reason that we shouldn't ban them all, even on a temporary basis. As I said, we're talking about 1.6 billion Muslims worldwide. And we're also talking about American Muslims. We're also talking about American servicemen and women that are also Muslim, that are serving our country right now overseas, that would give their lives for America. They're not the enemy. They're part of us. And we have to look at it like that. And when it comes to Trump, what he sees, he says he wants to make America great again. But the America that he wants to create is not the America that was great. We don't do these things in America. At least we shouldn't do these things. It should be the America that I remember, that I grew up in. The America that I love, where we don't discriminate because of religion, where we don't discriminate because of the color of their skin. We're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to be the shining city in the hill. We're supposed to be great. We're not supposed to give in to fear of the other, of people who are different. We're not supposed to do that. As I said, Trump thinks that doing all those things and being afraid is what's going to make America great again. But really, all that it's going to do is that's going to take us up back to the Dark Ages. And that's not what America is about. We're supposed to lift the lamp by the golden door, not shut it.